And welcome back to Dan Celia's Financial Issues without Dan. Dan is always on the go, and this morning he's got to catch an airplane somewhere. So, but he'll be back. He's back in our home base here in Tupelo next week for Share-a-thon, which begins on Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday next week. Give you an opportunity to come alongside us as you always have through the years. And I'll tell you what, the appreciation for what American Family Radio does, American Family Association, has grown through the years as the culture wars get more intense all the time. And I think you'd have to be living in a cave not to know that there is spiritual warfare going on out there. And God has given us the privilege here at American Family Association to be on the front lines of that warfare. And so we appreciate your prayers each day. And as I say, next week, Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday are going to be a good time here for our fall Share-a-thon. Well, I was a few minutes late getting to our morning devotion. We start our day here at American Family Association with a devotion. It's a real privilege, having worked in secular media for so many years, to be able to start your work day with a devotion is just such a privilege, such a blessing. Got there a few minutes late this morning, and there was a strange face giving the devotion. I did not know this person. But boy, she had a compelling story. Her name is Dr. Gina Loudon, and she's with me in studio right now. Gina, welcome to the program.
Thank you so much for having me.
Oh, you're welcome. Well, listen, I have a 133-page resume here.
Yes, I'm applying for the job of president.
You are. Wait a minute now. Show host, national speaker, body language analyst.
I've got you all figured out. If that was
Is
your
that
question,
right? No. Yeah, you can tell I'm Canadian, right?
Yes.
Writer, culture critic, polycologist.
Very good.
Oh,
Canadians can read too.
I can do that. Specialized doctoral professional. The resume said bacon lover. Is that correct?
Oh, yes.
You're a bacon lover?
Yes, definitely.
And recent participant in Wife Swap.
Yes.
Okay. We have to go now, folks. Have a nice day.
Yeah.
Oh, listen.
Not something that every conservative can put on their resume, right?
That's right. Exactly. I went down through the resume. Did not find astronaut.
Not on there. At least not yet.
Not yet. All right. Hey, listen, we're so glad that you've joined us this morning. And among many things, we only have a few minutes to talk about a few of them. You have been very much involved in the pro-life movement. Fill us in a little bit on those details.
Well, I think it probably started. I remember making speeches on pro-life when I was a little bitty girl. For me, the common sense into this is so simple. I met my husband in college, and before he became a state rep and then ultimately a state senator in Missouri, I remember him taking a constitutional law class and deciding that he too was pro-life. And that was a pivotal moment in our relationship where I realized maybe he was marriage material. And thank God I did, because he passed one of the strongest, most prolific landmark pieces of legislation in the state of Missouri that shut down an abortion clinic in Missouri, disabled many others. And I don't even know what the tally is at this point of their estimates of how many children were saved by that. But this is something that has always been near and dear to me in a very personal way. And I felt from a young age that I wanted to adopt a child with Down syndrome. And then I found out that for all of my efforts, for all of my phone calls into abortion clinics to say, hey, when you have a woman come in and she's a little tenuous in her decision, I'm not asking to come in there and try to change her mind. I'm saying if she's tenuous, have her call me. I'd like to adopt her baby with a special need. And of course, I never received a phone call. No. Learned pretty quickly that the abortion industry isn't in the business of adoption, to be sure. And never got one phone call in 10 years of calling abortion clinics tirelessly, begging them, please. I know sometimes you get a woman in there who says, they said something's wrong with my baby. Let me adopt that baby. Well, then I found out about a clearinghouse in Ohio that matches people who want to take special needs babies up with those babies. And got on a waiting list of 350 some families waiting for a child who has a disability. And I realized, wow, I'm not alone in this. So for all of those out there who say, who's going to take care of these babies that have these big problems, whatever those big problems are, There are a lot of us actually willing to do this. I had to wait in line for 10 years, and finally my little miracle came. I had his name picked out from before he was even born, and it's Samuel. And he did come to us truly through a miracle. His mother tried to abort him several times, and so we are so blessed. And she and I are extremely close friends at this point, I should add. It was a closed adoption, but I went and found her. And that's a whole nother miraculous story in and of itself. But he's a miracle every day. And it's not, this is not about, people always say, oh, that's so good that you did this. And I sort of shudder when they say that. I knew what I wanted. This was I won't say a fleshly desire, but I knew that I wanted to be close to someone who had that sort of closeness to the Holy Spirit that I see in people with Down syndrome.
Man, that is amazing. Now, you're also involved with the Tea Party movement, one of the 100 founding members, I think I read.
Yes.
Is that correct? And of course,
not sure who got to decide that, but
and of course, life and the pro-life movement, very important to the Tea Party movement. There's so much going on politically in our country right now, and divisions with even in the Republican Party over this.
Oh, yes.
And the Tea Party being marginalized, demonized by the president and the Democrats in all of this. So how does that affect your zeal for things? Do you get discouraged? You seem to be a very lively, upbeat individual. But I know, like a lot of other conservatives, especially when you go through and you see what's been happening in Washington this week, there's discouragement. How do you deal with that? In the pro-life movement, in the conservative movement, how do you deal with that?
I serve a really mighty God, and I am always amazed how he dwells in the realm of irony. If you just take the very foundation of our faith, you know that here's the King of Kings who came to us under such unbelievably unpretentious, humble circumstances when he could have come however he wanted. So he is always the most present at the moment where in our flesh we would doubt him the most. So I think that the more we are completely driven to our knees, the more likely we are to really find him there. And I found in my own life, in my search for my child with Down syndrome, but 100 times more than that, he's proven that. It's those moments where I go, I have no hope. There is no hope. I am never going to get this baby that I want my children to know and be raised with. That he goes, watch this. And that's when he does his stuff. See, he wants us to know, I believe, and I'm certainly not a preacher of any kind, but I believe just through what he's done in my own life that he wants us to know that when it happens, it was him. Unmistakably, undeniably, unavoidably. And how could we possibly be in more true despair in this country right now than we are? To watch what our forefathers died for, what they were martyred for, what they suffered for, what they lost their families and their fortune and their sacred honor for. How can we watch all of that dissipate in literally one administration? And be in any more desperate a situation. This is perfect God's timing. If I watch the way God has done things historically, this is when he moves. Because otherwise we can take credit. And in this situation, we're all going to be looking at this going, wow, that was God. Yeah.
Let him be big.
Yeah.
All right. I teased a little bit off the top of our interview here about wife swap. And some may just laugh at that, but there's a very serious motivation that you had for getting involved with that. Now, as I recollect, this is where families change moms. Have I got the right show there?
You have the right show, yes.
Okay.
So a lot of times it's the fascination of the culture clash. You have the hippie mom who exchanges with the homeschool mom, or you have the radically liberal mom who exchanges with the radically conservative mom. There have been a lot of preachers that have done this show, things like that. And generally the idea isn't to glamorize conservatism. Let's just start with that. And I knew that. But I also knew that, again, God can use that which is intended for evil. And I wanted to be that vessel if he wanted to use me that way. So I had to be sure that he wanted to use me that way. And I had to shut out all the advisors and the naysayers who said things like, why would you give them your content? You've worked hard to establish your reputation all these years. Why would you risk it all for one reality show? Is this just a desire to be famous? if one's desire is to be famous for being ridiculed, I don't know. But I absolutely prayed through it. I sought advice from my pastor, Jim Garlow at Skyline Church, who does a lot of this. He makes these rounds. He does the Colbert Show. He does a lot of these very liberal shows where you get death threats after you do them. I've done some of those shows as well. He is so precious. He said, I absolutely do not want you to do this, because he's so protective. But he said, I think you could have a huge impact, but I'm going to advise you against it. But I knew what he was saying, because he wanted to protect my family, because he loves us. And but you know what? God did use it in some really big ways. And I am thankful, believe it or not. It was a horrendous personal experience, the worst of my life, probably. The inside part of the show was very ugly. I was very unprotected, and I was put into a situation I could have never predicted. But the outcome and how God has used that since then has been nothing short of the glory of God and how he always works. So I'm thankful.
Part of your testimony this morning that I was fascinated with is your desire and what God has laid on your heart on communicating with the lost. As you say, even conservative talk radio, conservative circles, quite often we're preaching to those who already agree with us. But God has really laid it on your heart to outreach and go into the pop culture milieu. Talk to us a little bit about that.
Yes, thank you for bringing that up, because I don't mean to in any way say that the work that is done with AFR is in any way diminished, because it is just as important, of course, to bolster, to help minister, to help the narrative of the person out there who's fighting this fight in the streets every day. And that's what you do. And that's so critical to our mission. If we're not bona fide, we sure can't take the message anyplace else. But for those of us who feel like we're just not reaching lost people, politically, culturally, religiously, all the way around, there are a lot of lost people. Media has changed so dramatically. We no longer get our news, the morning news, the evening news. We don't get that. And kids today, especially the under 30 set, they never watch the news. The only news they might ever get might come from a reality show, sadly, or a comedy show. Therefore, we have to go into those realms. I'm not saying this is a calling for everyone, but I am saying if God is whispering this to you, you have to listen to that just as well. We can't be afraid of being ridiculed or being made fun of or being laughed at or being edited to look bad. We have to trust that God can still use that, because otherwise we're diminishing the size of God. And so that's been the hardest part for me. I'm not going to lie. Trusting. Was I nervous after we shot that for the 2 months or 3 months that ensued? I was the first wife in the history of Wife Swap to walk off the show and refuse to finish it. So I didn't know if they would use our show. I didn't know what would happen. I didn't know how they'd edit me. I certainly knew they were all very angry with me, understandably so. But it came to a point where my moral integrity was being put on the line, and I had to go back to my life and be the person that I was before, and I couldn't do that with the things that were happening behind the scenes on Wife Swap. So I had to make that decision, and I had to leave. But again, God used it, and to this day, they'll still play reruns, I guess, in different countries and things. I'm still getting hate mail, still getting death threats. Yes, I am. But I am still getting mail that says things like, I worked on Obama's last campaign, both of his campaigns, and after seeing your heart, people, some of that does actually translate on screen. After seeing your heart and the fruit, your children and the love between you and your husband, I want to tell you that my whole perspective has changed. I thought all Christians were these mean, bitter, vitriolic, intolerant types, and that's not what I saw on that show. So those kinds of things do translate, and I'm thankful for that.
So a face and a testimony that they could relate to, that touched them, that's just amazing. That really is. And you're still getting that kind of reaction from it. So you're reaching a community that's often not reached by the church.
Yeah.
They don't listen to religious programming on radio or TV.
Right.
But isn't that what Jesus did? He didn't stay in the synagogue. He went out.
Yeah, he really did.
And touched base. But I think you also raise an important point in all of this. The world's not going to like us all the time.
No.
And many times today, the philosophy, I think, in Christian outreach is if they don't like you, change the message.
Yes.
We can't do that.
Yeah, that's a really important point too. While we do need to count it pure joy whenever we endure any of the kinds of persecutions that Christ endured, at the same time, we need to be very careful not to mask our message, because our message is eternal. And there's no media that can change the fact that our message is 100% not only true, but self-evident. People uncover it whether they want to or not. That's I hate to use the word magic, but that's the magic in it. And I'm so glad you mentioned this, because there are two movements. Oh, you have to go to break? Oh.
We have to finish up our program.
Oh, we do. I just want to caution people not to avoid the social issues, because I believe that's how we communicate with those that we're not reaching right now.
Our guest has been Dr. Gina Loudon. I wish I had another hour to speak with you, but you've got a website and
Yes.
background. Got a new book. What's it called?
It's Ladies and Gentlemen,
Okay.
Why the Survival of Our Republic Depends on the Revival of Honor, and folks can find it on my website, drginaloudon.com.
Dr. Gina Loudon, thank you for being with us.
Thank you for having me.
And thank you for joining us on this segment of Dan Celia's Financial Issues. We hope that you have a blessed weekend. Continue to listen to more great programming here throughout the weekend on American Family Radio. Bye for now.